All right, so welcome everybody. This is our second online event for AWS Accra. We've had other events, but they were primarily physical meetings. We have a Meetup Group, that's the officially recognized group by AWS for the Accra Meetup. We have a Slack channel. If you are not already on the Slack channel, I'll send a link on the Slack channel in the chat as the meeting progresses. We also have a YouTube and a Twitter page, so you can follow us there. We post event content and other tutorials and other how-to videos on our YouTube page. It's a pretty new page, so we are yet to have more content there. So yeah, welcome everybody once again. So today, the focus is really to talk about AWS certifications, and we are proud to have the main speaker, who is Emmanuel Koomson. Emmanuel Koomson has achieved all the AWS certification, and I don't know how he did it, but we are here with Emmanuel, and he's going to give us all the scoop. I have about 4 certifications myself. It's not been easy. For him to have all 13 certifications, that is a major milestone. So I'll say it's been really nice knowing Emmanuel personally, and I think he's a lot of inspiration to the AWS community, and specifically the Accra community as a whole. So Emmanuel, without much ado, I think I'll let you take it away. Yeah, so thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Edwin. Welcome everyone. I believe we have about 14 people on the call now. It's a great number, and I hope a lot more people will join in as we progress. So before I start, you see the nice shirt I'm wearing. I got this delivered to me this week from the community. So I want to thank Edwin and everybody in the Accra user group community for the Mythical Misfits t-shirt. It's a very lovely t-shirt. And Mythical, some people may be wondering what Mythical Misfits is, but it's one of the projects you deploy on AWS when you start learning. So when you go to Amazon or AWS website, you see the project there. Very interesting project. So today, like Edwin said, we are here to talk about AWS certifications, and he also mentioned I have all the 13 certifications, and I'm happy to be here to share with you how I maneuvered my way around that. And then I hope that after this meeting, you ask questions, and then you also continue to use the platform and then certify as well. So with that, we would start. Okay, so we'll be talking about myself and my AWS journey, and then the AWS certifications there are, and then how I certified all of them, and then most importantly, why you should also certify. Now I'll be sharing a few tips on what you should know for the exams, the various certifications, and then also some resources, general resources you can use if you are pursuing a certification. And then you can ask me questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any question as I progress, you can write it down, and then when we get to the question time, you ask. So I don't know if I look like the guy in the picture there, but that is me. Both of them are me. One is a pre-COVID look, and then the other, what you see now, is a COVID look. We keep our hair a bit longer, so that's me. But back to myself, I graduated from KNUST, one of the universities in Ghana. The full name is actually Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. So the non-Ghanaians here, Kwame Nkrumah is the founding father of Ghana. He was the one who led Ghana to independence. I believe Bhavesh is Indian. Today is India's Independence Day. So happy Independence Day, Bhavesh, since we're talking about independence.
Thanks, Emmanuel.
Yeah. So I studied computer engineering, and then I went on to work for MTN Ghana, the largest telecom operator in Ghana. I've been there since. So I've been at MTN for about 7 years. I work as a solutions architect. I started as a project coordinator and then moved into architecture along the way. And most people know me to have 13 AWS certifications. But outside that, I'm a certified project manager as well. And also that's PMP. And I also have the Prince 2, which is also a project management certification. And then the enterprise architecture certification, which is TOGAF, the Open Group Architecture Framework. And outside the professional world, I'm a Bible study teacher at my church. We call it Sunday school. So every Sunday, you see me teaching people about the Bible. Yeah, so that's outside work. And as we progress, I'm having a few issues with mine, but that's cool. Okay. So I believe you can see my next slide, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I should have asked at the beginning if you could see my slides, but
yeah,
from the feedback, you can see my slides. Yeah. So my AWS journey, I'm relatively new to AWS actually. Outside the fact that I have 13 certifications, I actually started using the platform last year. So when I was on my annual break in 2018, that was in December, I have Alexa. Those of you know, actually it's called Echo. So those of you who don't know, I'm sorry about that. You're not supposed to mention the name if you have some. Other than that, it wakes up. So I'm sorry about that. If you could hear the feedback. Yes, so I have that product from Amazon, and it's basically an AI voice assistant. So whilst I was on leave in December 2018, one day I just decided to write a skill. A skill is basically an app on the voice assistant. So I wrote a skill, and I was pretty impressed about how it all went about. I mean, the various integrations and what you go through to write a skill. But then I didn't pursue it further. I mean, it was just a one-day thing. When it comes to me and the development, I can program, but I don't have passion for it. So it's only when I feel like programming that I do. So yeah, it was a one-off thing. And then later on at work, a few months later, I had to do a POC for a project. I had to do a POC for a project. So I thought, why not use AWS? Because I don't have to go through the various procedures to obtain servers and all that. I can just spin up a few servers and then deploy the project. And after that, turn them off. So that's how I actually got into AWS. The Alexa one was a one-off event, but after at work, I actually saw a need to use AWS, and we don't use AWS at work. It's like we use Azure mostly. Yes. So I said, why not? I was pretty impressed because when you look at the AWS platform, you realize there are over 175 different products and services there, as well as over 6,000 different product features. So every product, let's say compute, there are different features and sub-services you can use with that. So it's a pretty extensive platform, and I understand that it's not always easy to maneuver your way through that. I mean, I've heard other platforms like Azure are quite easy to use and all that, but AWS isn't that easy to use. But all the same, I thought, how can these people have compute, storage, networking, machine learning, everything in one place? I got thinking, I'm like, wow. So this how cloud looks like. But then at the time, I didn't have much time to study the platform further because I had personal development goals as well. I took the PMP and then TOGAF last year. So involved a number of training programs and studying for those exams. So I had to finish those ones. And then when I finished, I came back to AWS. That was very late in the year. So in December, I think December 27, 2019, that's last year, I took the first exam, which was the Solutions Architect Professional. I passed, and then I moved on from there. But initially, my plan was to write only 2 certifications, which were the Architect Professional and Machine Learning. I'll come back to that. Okay, so there are 12 different AWS certifications. So someone will ask, why do I have 13 if there are 12? So there used to be big data, a big data certification. That was replaced recently with a data analytics certification. So we'll come back to that. But there are 12 certifications, and then there are 4 categories of certifications. You can take any one at any time. But most people start with either the cloud practitioner or the solutions architect associate. So the foundation certification is for people who are not into technology. And then even people who are into technology, if you are now coming into AWS, it's advised to take the foundation certificate, which is the cloud practitioner. So most people take that. But people who work in finance and HR and the others, if they want to understand a little bit about cloud, they can also take it. So AWS usually prescribe 6 months of AWS knowledge before you can take that. But then these prerequisites are not enforced. So you can decide to go and take practitioner today, even if you don't have any AWS exposure. And from there, you can move on to the associate certifications. AWS advise that you have at least 1 year experience with using AWS Cloud. So most people usually start with the associates solutions architect because it gives you a general overview of all the services. Developer is more to do with people who write code and deploy code. And then you have the sysops, our systems administrators. This is their certification. So it's about the everyday managing and operations of IT infrastructure. And from the associate exams, you can decide to take any one at any time. So most people usually do the associate first before they proceed to the other certifications. The professional exams, there are 2 of them, solutions architect and then DevOps professional. So solutions architect professional is the professional level certification for the solutions architects. And this is known to the community as the most difficult exam. Yeah, but then if you have 2 years experience of using AWS, you should be able to, pass the exam. It's very challenging, but you can also pass as well. Then you have the DevOps professional, which is the professional level for developers, and then the SysOps. So DevOps is actually culture where you bring together development and then operations. So you get the dev from the development and then operations, the ops from operations. So both sysops administrator and developer associates professional certification is the DevOps. So there's only one professional certification for this. And then you have the specialists on AWS. So you have people who are into database administration, or they are into security or into networking. So AWS also came up with the specialty exam for people who are specialists in one domain. So there are 6 of them: advanced networking, security, Alexa skill builder, machine learning, data analytics, and database. Advanced networking is for network engineers. Advanced networking is for network engineers. So typically your CCIEs and CCNPs will go for that. It's also quite a challenging exam, but like I said, with the right attitude and knowledge, you should be able to pass. Then there's security. Security is for security professionals, people who and make sure the company infrastructure and platforms are safe from bad actors. And if you want to take AWS certifications, even if maybe you want to end at the associate or maybe professional, advise you also take the security specialty, because in the cloud, security, you can't treat security secondhand. Everyone is supposed to be responsible for security, even if it's not your day-to-day activity. So that's quite a very popular specialty exam, security. A lot of people take that. Then there's machine learning for machine learning practitioners. This is also a very difficult exam. There's this LinkedIn post we are debating on the most difficult exam at the moment. So you find all these, you find networking, machine learning, and then the solutions architect professional appearing there. Then there's the Alexa skill builder. So these are for people who build apps for the Alexa products. And it's quite an interesting certification. I think it's one of the easiest specialty exams. Then there's data analytics. I mentioned earlier that before there was big data, but AWS thought that they should change the structure of the exam because of how data is processed now. So they changed the structure of the exam. There's a little difference between the big data and then the data analytics. So the data analytics is the new version of the big data exam. There's the database specialty. This is for, I usually tell people that the database specialty exam is for solutions architects rather than database administrators, because you don't find any SQL or anything like that there. Yes, it's about databases, all right, but there's no code to select any records from a database or anything like that. It's more of architecting database solutions, which now we have what SQL and NoSQL databases, among others. So this is a snapshot of all the 12 AWS certifications there are now. And then, because we've talked about certification, now I'll go on to talk about how I achieved my 13 certifications. I used a total of 7 months to do that. Remember, I said I'm quite new to AWS, and I'm still learning even after 13 certifications. So the one thing that will lead you to success is planning. Growing up, we used to talk a lot about how you plan and writing your goals down and all that. We didn't take it so serious. But then I realized that planning, whilst working towards this certification, I realized how important planning is, because I created folders for the certifications I was going to take. I created a plan on what I'm to learn, the materials I'm supposed to use and all that. And I did this collectively. So you realize that whilst I was preparing for the Solutions Architects Associate, I was looking at the professional. Whilst I was looking at the I was doing professional, I was looking at networking and DevOps, like gathering materials here and there. Even though I was working at one, I was working on one at a time. I was managing like a program, a collection of projects. Yes. So, and one other thing is that plans are supposed to be refined all the time. You can't create a plan and then say, I'm sticking to this plan. It doesn't work in real life. So I found myself, initially, I thought maybe when I decided to write all 13, initially, initially my goal was to write only 2 exams. It became 3, and then it went on to about 6, and then to 13, you know. So my initial plan was not to write all 13 certifications, it was only 2. I ended up writing 13 because as time went on, I got new information, I became more interested, I adjusted the plan. And one of the reasons why I was able to write all 13 exams in 7 months was that I developed a learning culture. So at the beginning of the year, I said that every day this year, I'm going to learn something. So I was consistent, even if it's 30 minutes. It's a commitment I owe to myself that every day I have to learn something, whether it's AWS or on machine learning or any other thing. Every day I have to learn something. Because when you start preparing towards the certification and you leave it, you come back to it, you have to start all over again or go back. So it helps you if you are always working towards it. And then you measure progress. So initially, because I heard machine learning was very difficult, I had some little machine learning experience. And I was like, okay, I'll use 3 weeks to prepare and write the machine learning exam. But then when I started taking the course for machine learning, I realized no, that it was very easy for me. That's personally, I realized it was easy. I'm like, I can write this exam even today. As of the first week, I was taking the course. So I was like, okay, if I can write this even today, then let me book it for next week. And when I realized it was easy, mentally, I wasn't in a good mood to even prepare again because I knew I could pass easily. Yes, and it was the same for other certifications as well. So Edwin will remember that one time I told him, I think 2 months ago, I told him by next week, I set a date in next week that by that date, I would finish all the certifications. And then actually did it like 2 or 3 weeks earlier because sometimes you measure your progress and like, okay, I can do this. Why not do it now? And then the reverse is also true. At times you realize that you need more time. So adjust the plan accordingly if you need more time. And then you should know yourself. Like I said, once I'm measuring and I know myself that, okay, I have some little experience or some knowledge in machine learning, I can do this. Go. So usually you read articles by people on these certifications and all that. That's their view. You should also get your own view. So if I say that the database specialty exam is very easy, it may not be the same for you. You should assess yourself and know that maybe I've never done anything with databases, so my learning curve is quite huge than other people. So everyone is different. You can read what people advise and suggest and all that, but still assess it and put yourself in the frame. Then dumps. I hate dumps. I hate dumps. The reason being that you don't learn. You don't learn when you use dumps. It's like Awad is a machine learning student, so you would understand if I say using dumps is like overfitting a model, which typically means that you're only learning a particular thing. But then you realize that the exam is quite broad and you may never see a past question or any question that will appear on the exam in the wild. So if you use dumps, 1,000 questions and all that, you're just fitting yourself to the knowledge from the dumps. Explore the other materials you can look at. And if you use dumps, there may be a tendency that you see a question you haven't seen before and you may not be able to answer. So yes, I use practice questions and all, but it's to test my knowledge and understanding. It's to measure if I can really write the exam. But then so many questions, and usually they don't give, you realize that with the dumps, they don't even give you answers and explanation to the question. So most of the time you may be learning the wrong answer to the question. And then the last one is give back. I mentioned I read a lot of articles from people and all that. Yes, it helps. I mean, like we are all here, we may want to take a certification exam and all that, but we don't know where to start. AWS is quite big. There are 12 certifications. Where do you start from? There are over 175 different products and services. Which one should you learn? So sharing with other people how to go about it also helps to develop others, like I'm doing now, and writing articles about my certification experience and all that. One interesting thing happened this week. So in April, I was preparing for the DevOps exam. And then I read an article by someone. At the time, he had 5 certifications. And it was a very good article. I mean, it told me which services I should be concentrating on and all that for the DevOps exam. And so I used that as part of my plan. I went to write the exam, I passed. Okay, so that's not the interesting part. The interesting part, I passed the exam, that's it. Then this week, this guy messaged me on WhatsApp, needed help with Alexa. And I'm like, oh, wow. So the person I learned from some time back is now coming to me to also help me. And I felt good about it. So assuming he didn't write the article, I wouldn't have seen him in the first place and connected with him, you see. And then when he needed help, he wouldn't have also come to me. So by writing the article, he's also getting help for something else. And that's how the world works. And today you help someone, tomorrow another person helps you. Nobody has it all. So why should you certify? First of all, it's to validate your knowledge and skills. Some of us have been using AWS for a while and we think we know it all, but when you take the certification or when you start preparing towards the certification, start to fill in the gaps and even like, oh, I know this. So you're able to check what you really know. And then to develop yourself. So I mentioned earlier, there are so many things you learn. Those of us who have taken a few of the exams, you realize that there are some things you thought you knew before, but really didn't know. It was only when you were preparing towards the certification that you got to learn about them. And then those who are new, I mean, we add new skills to ourselves. And high salaries, yes. So people with one of the people with the associate solutions architect certificate, averagely they earn about $130,000 a year. And that's a lot of money. Not so many people make that. So you can imagine if the associate level people with the associate start earning this, you can imagine what other people earned with the much challenging certifications. So it's rewarding, but that's not the most important reason why you should certify. It shouldn't always be about the money. AWS certifications also help you prepare for the future. You realize that everything is moving into cloud now. Even the office we use is now in the cloud. It's now Office 365. Active directories and softwares we use, enterprise softwares, they are all deployed as SaaS models now. So everything is moving to the cloud. Now, when you certify also, you get into a network of other people with certifications. You get to learn from them. We all learn from other people. So once you certify, I mean, you also get even more people with more experience and more knowledge than yourself you can also learn from. And the next one is quite important, reliability. We read every time that some companies' resources have been compromised in the cloud and all that. When you certify, you learn the best practices, the best ways to secure your workload such that you don't have such challenges. So you realize that most of the issues in the cloud in relation to security as a result of people not having the right knowledge or the training to manage those workloads. And they also update your skills. Because once I mentioned there are over 6,000 features. Every week, AWS is releasing new features and improving others. So through the certification program, you're able to learn the new services and how they work with all the other ones. And then the subject matter experts program is also a giving back, a way to give back. That's basically how they get the exam questions. So you have people coming together from all backgrounds and different countries to write questions for the various certification. But definitely you need to have the certification before you can write exam questions for those certifications. Then the partner network. So Amazon has a partner network where companies with so many, companies with people with certifications are onboarded and then they receive extra training, among others, and other benefits as well. And if you're a partner or you're part of the network, you also get deals from other companies. So assuming you're a consulting company and then you are part of the partner network, people trust that, yes, you work directly with Amazon and they can entrust their business into your hands. So these are a few of the reasons why you should certify. And the certifications don't come cheap. Every good thing involves money. So the foundational exam costs $100. Associate level exams is $150. Then the professional and specialty exams, they cost $300. The good thing is that AWS gives you 50% discounts on your next exam if you pass the current one. So assuming you write cloud practitioner and you pass, you're going to pay $75 for the solutions architect associate. But if you want to write the professional, you pay $150. So once you pass an exam, I mean, your next is 50% off. Then you get 100% discount on the practice test as well. Practice test, the official practice tests are not free. Yeah, but you get discounts on that if you pass an exam. So in general, to certify, all the certification use a common structure. There are things you need to know for each certification, and there's a blueprint, an exam blueprint for each of the certification. So you can look at that to see what AWS expects you to know. Then for every exam, there are domains. So domains are basically subjects you may be tested on. So for instance, networking will be tested on hybrid connections, will be tested on security. So all the collection of questions on security will form the domain. And there's a pass score. So for the associate level, I think pass score is 720. The total score is 1,000. But you need to score at least 720. And it's not in percentage, it's a scaled scoring model, like it's done for the SATs and GMAT and the likes. So you have you can score between 100 and 1,000, with 100 being the lowest. Professional and specialty, the pass score is 750. And then other than the professional level exams, all the other exams, you find 65 questions on them. And then the associate level exams, the duration is 130 minutes. The professional level is 170 minutes. So at this point, I'll share with you some general resources you can use when you are preparing for the exam. So the first one is the resources from AWS. And there's this site from AWS, aws.training. That's the URL of the site. It has very good information on training courses for different products. And for every exam, there's an exam prep course. So the exam prep courses usually guide you on the things you should study. They're not teaching you what you should study, but they guide you. Maybe you should be learning about compute services and all that for the exam. Then there's the certification quiz show. So basically, they solve about 8 questions in each episode for a particular certification. So it's a good way to test your knowledge. Then there's the official practice test. I mentioned that earlier. There are study guides for every certification. And the AWS documentation and FAQs, they are a very good way to learn about the products. Yes, you use the products, but when you read the documentation, you understand how to use it for other things and even use cases by other people, things other people have built using those services. Then the white paper. Most of us don't like reading white papers. If I should ask those who have certified, most of them will tell you they never use the white papers. And white papers are a very good way to actually understand how you'll be tested, because they tell you about use cases, how you should be using the services, the best practices for using those services. And sometimes there are case studies. I remember for database, there was a case study on how Amazon migrated from Oracle databases to their own database. And these are the kind of questions you'll be facing in the exam. Every question on the exam is scenario-based. Then there are the blogs, the AWS blogs. they're also a good way. There's reInvent and then the Tech Talks from AWS. Then the wrap-up guides, that's a collection of resources AWS advice that you use when you're preparing towards a certification exam. So they have that for most of the certification courses. Then third parties. So these guys go another mile to provide you with courses. So they teach you almost everything you need for the exam. So A Cloud Guru, Linux Academy has been acquired by A Cloud Guru, so they are now one company. There's Udemy, there's Cloud Academy. Most of them are subscription based. For Udemy, you pay per course. So I think A Cloud Guru is $49 per month, the subscription. You have access to every course. But of course, you can learn so many things at the same time. So then those at the bottom, Tutorials Dojo and then Waze Labs. These guys provide practice tests. So Tutorials Dojo have very good questions. The quality of questions are usually very high and difficult than the actual exam. So if you're able to solve those, the probability that you pass the actual exam is very high. And then even though there are 12 different exams, you realize that there are some services that appear on every exam. AWS love these services and they like to put them on every exam. So if you know them, you can apply the knowledge you have in so many certifications. So first of all, there's the Elastic Cloud Compute, which is EC2. These are basically VMs, virtual machines you can use for your workloads in the cloud. And you deploy them inside what you call a VPC, which is like a data center, a virtual data center. Then there's the Identity and Access Management, IAM. As for authentication and authorization, you find this everywhere. It's a way to manage security in the cloud, in AWS. So you find this everywhere, and it's on every exam as well, even machine learning. There's S3, which is the simple storage service. So this is for object storage, for data lakes and archiving data. And then there's DynamoDB, AWS beloved NoSQL database. Integrates with a lot of services. And then the last one I have there is Lambda. This is a way to, by Lambda, they provide serverless compute. So a lot of services or a lot of notifications or events use Lambda to communicate to other services. And it's becoming very, very popular. And you have some websites now which are serverless, meaning they're not managing any resources to deploy those servers. And every thing that happens is triggered independently. Okay, and there's the well-architected framework. So architecting in AWS or designing systems in AWS, you need to follow the well-architected framework, which also means that when there are certain exams questions, they are going to look at the well-architected framework to set the questions. So there are 5 pillars to the well-architected framework. The first one is operational excellence. Operational excellence tells you to monitor things and be alerting all the time to make sure that your systems are working as they should. If they are not, you deploy remedy solutions to correct them. Then security. Security, you cannot ignore security in the cloud because it's someone's computer you are using. So you should always ensure that your systems are secured. And when it comes to security, it's a responsibility of both AWS and then yourself. So AWS will typically tell you that they are responsible for security of the cloud, and then you are responsible for security in the cloud. By that, what they mean is that AWS manages the infrastructure. They make sure it is secured. Nobody can go and take their server and then access your information. And then you are responsible for securing the data and applications you have on those systems. So it's a shared responsibility. And the next one is reliability. You have AWS, because there's infrastructure everywhere on every continent and different regions and all that. There are ways to deploy systems in different places if you have an issue at one particular location. And even when you have an issue, there should be auto recovery systems to address that. So there are a lot of different ways you can achieve reliability in the cloud. Then performance efficiency. This performance efficiency and then cost optimization, they go hand in hand in the sense that in the cloud, you pay for only what you use. And there's this joke that in AWS, you don't pay for only what you use, but then you pay for things you also forget to turn off. So when you don't need something, you can easily dispose them of. For practitioner, one of the questions you may ever be asked on practitioner is how should you be disposing of servers, or you should not be disposing them of. In the cloud, everything is disposable, and how you dispose things of ensures efficiency. So if you're efficient, that means that you're optimizing costs. If you're not being efficient, it's likely you'll be paying more for the systems. And then I also want to share with you my advice. Since I've taken all the exams, nothing beats experience. The best way to pass these exams is experience. So I mentioned I did this in 7 months, and I had no experience in the cloud. I used that to learn. By certification, I was learning the services. Yesterday on LinkedIn, a guy was announcing that he did the 12 certifications in less than 3 months. And because he has a lot of experience. When you have experience, the questions are very easy because they are scenario based, and that's what you've been doing all this while. So it should be very easy to answer them. Outside experience, you should be reading the white papers because you don't know it all. By reading the white papers, you understand how other people do the same things you've been doing, and even better ways they do it. And then it's always good to take the practice test because it gives you an idea of what to expect in the exam. You're not going to see the same questions in the exam, but it gives you the same quality of questions you find on the exam. And one thing I realized while taking all these exams or certifications was that AWS will never ask you a trick question. There's no trick question. Every question is scenario based, and the options are such that if you know what you're about, you'll be able to select the correct options. Sometimes they look similar, but then you have to understand what the question is asking. Is the question asking to optimize cost, or is asking for high availability? So based on that, you should be able to pick the correct answer, even though the answers may look similar. And I've mentioned this before. There are some services that you find on every exam. You have to master them. If you are going to write a couple of exams or a number of them or all of them, you should know these services by heart. In addition to what I've been added, there's CloudWatch and CloudTrue. You find them everywhere. And then the next point, your goal is to pass. Your goal is not to get 100%. What do I mean by this? So typically, you find people using so much time to prepare for one exam. When I read such I'm like, oh, they want to get 100%. For me, if I'm preparing for an exam and I feel like I'll pass, my confidence is high that I'll pass, then I book the exam. So when you realize, I think I did 7 of the 13 certifications in 1 month. Because when you get to a certain, when you take the exams for some time, you understand how questions are set and you know what exactly you're going to face on the exam. And I also didn't take most of the associates courses, so I took them later. So when you got there, it was very easy. I didn't have to learn for those ones. I just booked the exams and then sat for them. So I also advise that, yes, you can set 2 months as your target, but after 1 month, if you feel like you can pass, just book the exam and then pass, go and pass. 750 is most the pass mark for professional and specialty. 720 for associates. So if you feel you can get those marks, book the exam. Don't wait another 1 month whilst you're preparing for the exam. And whilst you're writing the exam, you should always have water, but you should keep yourself hydrated. It keeps you cool and you're able to think better. So that's the end of my presentation. I made it very short so that you can ask so many questions. So this is the end of the presentation. This is my contacts. You can reach me via any of these means. At this juncture, if you have any question, you can raise your hand and then I can answer them for you.
All right, Emma, thank you very much for the presentation. So I think we have a very good knowledge on what the available AWS certifications currently are. We also have a good knowledge about how to prep yourself to start looking at taking the exam and what exam you like to take. Ideally, if you are starting off AWS as a beginner, it's always ideal to do the practitioner to warm you up, and then you can go into whatever other associate track you want, to be it operations, development, or architecting. So also, I think it stressed the fact that you need to be consistent. You need to plan your certification journey, and also most importantly, you want to make sure that you get practical knowledge, hands-on knowledge on the platform. AWS is practical, and all you need is an account, and then you have access to the console and you can take it away. So thank you very much, Emma. I think there are some questions already which have been asked. Christina asked a question. So you'll take Christina's question first. But at this point, when anybody else wants to ask a question, you can still type it out or raise your hand from the participant section. There is a raise hand feature for Zoom. You can raise your hand, we'll call you, you can ask your question, and then we'll take it from there. We'll spend about 10 minutes or less doing the questions, depending on how many questions we have. So if you can take the first question from Christina. Did you get Christina's question, Emma?
Yes, I got a question.
All right.
So Christina, this is a very interesting question, and since I read the question, I've been smiling. The reason why I posted the North America rate is that it's quite difficult to get such information here because you don't have much work going on in the cloud in Ghana. Don't get me wrong, yes, people are deploying workloads in Ghana, but it's difficult to get a lot of, we don't have so many qualified engineers and all that to share their salaries on sites like Glassdoor and the rest. So it's quite difficult to get this, but from what I can tell you, there are people in Ghana who work remotely on AWS and they charge almost the same rates as North America and Europe. So typically 1 hour contract work on AWS, you should be charging about $100. For in-country, I can't say, but and also one thing I'll say is that you realize that gradually in-country companies are moving into the cloud and all that. And as these skills become needed in the markets, you realize that there'll be higher salaries than usual, like it is even in North America and other markets. So this is a good time if you are looking at working with cloud. This is a good time to develop yourself, and you can be taking up the very good jobs and very good salaries as they come. And then the same Christina, I believe, I know I didn't answer your question, but I tried. The same Christina has another question.
Ima, let me add on to the earlier question, and then there are
Yes.
other people answer. So
Oh, and Edwin, before you come, I think I should have mentioned that I don't even work as a cloud engineer or architect or anything like that. So I'm just an everyday solutions architect at a telecom provider. So Edwin works with cloud, and I'm sure he can give us much more insights into pay and benefits there.
all right, yeah, thank you, Ima. So yeah, personally, I work as a DevOps engineer. We are primarily I work with the fintech IT consortium, and we mostly deploy on AWS. We deploy AWS. So yeah, I mean, I mostly work. I have a lot of experience with AWS. I've had hands-on for let's say close to 4 years. Now, just to add to what Ima was saying about based on Christina's earlier question. So AWS is still penetrating the African market, specifically Ghana. Some companies use it. Some people also don't fully know the value. And I think the cloud in general, when it comes to cloud platforms, it's still not fully adapted here. So once something is not fully adapted and organizations don't understand the space, obviously you can't be valued at that level. So it's a wave which is coming in. Some organizations understand the value and they might pay you what you deserve. But as things continue to, as the platform continues to grow and penetrate the African market and Ghana, and organizations get to see the value in it, then if they are looking for cloud engineers, if you are certified and you know your stuff, then yeah, you stand a better chance. You can still certify, and there are a lot of remote positions abroad that you can work from if Ghana doesn't give you your value. But what's important is you make sure that you grow yourself personally. Okay, so let's take a question from Pavesh. Pavesh, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Emmanuel, for all the insights. Uh, I just wanted to know, like for the specialty exams, you mentioned we need to know some basic understanding. Like for database specialty, we must know something about database, for networking, for ML. So does this third-party education sites like A Cloud Guru, Udemy, does they clears those concepts as well, like before starting jumping onto AWS? Or is that enough for passing the exams or practicing it?
Yeah. Good question, Bhavesh. So AWS is an IT platform, and a lot of the technology there are being used in the real world. It's just been repackaged into a shared environment. So like networking, you still need your IP knowledge. You need to understand subnetting. You need to understand BGP and all that. And the third-party education providers are not going to teach you BGP from scratch. You need some foundational knowledge. So when you check the exam blueprints into detail for each exam, they would specify what you should know. So for instance, machine learning. The machine learning exam is known as the only exam which is not really AWS specific. To pass the machine learning exam, you need to know general machine learning algorithms, how you deploy them and all that before you even apply the AWS technology. So you find out that over 50% of the content on that exam has nothing to do with AWS. It's what everybody uses. And typically, people with machine learning background, they don't even need to take the practitioner or associate. I've seen a few people done that as their first exam, even though it's a very difficult exam. They know machine learning, and that is what is tested on the exam. For databases, yes, you need to know the kinds of databases they are, how you replicate, how you back up and all that. Then on top of that, you add the AWS technology to databases. Because if you look at even RDS and Aurora, even though they are AWS versions of open source databases, they almost do the same thing like the open source versions. So knowing those will usually help you to even pass the exam. I would advise going to AWS with if you're writing the network specialty, means that you have a networking background. So one story I didn't share with you was when I didn't really study for the networking exam because I believed that I understand networking quite well. And I also have some little AWS understanding, so I could pass. And right after DevOps, I went to write the networking and then I passed. So having IT knowledge is very, very important to pass this exam and even understand the AWS concepts. Thanks very much for the question. Christina, to your question on live dashboards, I don't see any other hand up, so.
No, hold on, Ima.
Yeah.
So, we have Benjamin. Benjamin asked a question. He's asking, do certificates expire within a period of time? So you can take that.
Yes, so as it stands now, all the AWS certifications expire after 3 years. You have to write the exam again to renew. All of them.
Okay, all right, yeah. And then there's another question from Christina, but I think that she wants to understand how to create live dashboards or work recommendation for building live dashboards using data pipelines, ETLs, etc. So Christina, so I think that question, it's a more technical question which needs a couple of details. So, and it's not directly related to the AWS certifications. So I think we'll have to spend more time to give you that answer. We'll be grateful if you can put that question on the Slack group where we have, where we can give you more details on the recommendation and then what you need. So so that's for that. Okay, Christina's saying that okay, hold on a second. We'll be wrapping up shortly. We'll take one or two questions. So anyway, Christina came back to clarify. She says she meant in regards to the AWS certification actually. So I think maybe she's asking what certification might entail building dashboards or using data pipelines. I think this will be, after this, if there's no other question, this will be the last question, but we're ready to take one more question. So if you can talk to it, Iman, then we can.
Okay, so for that, the certification you need is the data analytics certification. And in relation to live dashboards, you have services like QuickSight for dashboards and the Kinesis family for ingesting data. So you have Kinesis data analytics, Kinesis Firehose, and then Kinesis data streams. There's also the video streams. So basically the Kinesis suite of products. And then for ETL, AWS advises you use Glue. And that service is heavily tested on the data analytics exam. Alternatively, you could use the EMR also. So these are services, and these are services that can solve that problem. And you find all of them on the data analytics certification. I believe Awad has some questions.
Yeah, so Ima, Awad's question, I'll take the first one, and then you take the second one. Yeah, okay. So Awad wants to know what are the complementary IT skills to have with AWS certifications to land a job. Yeah, he understands this might vary depending on the job, but yeah, he'll appreciate some feedback. Yeah, so So basically, I think that for starters, you would want to have a fair idea on AWS. Yeah, you can kind of learn a bit around the key services. That's what Imam mentioned earlier. You can talk about IAM. You can talk about the code services, especially if you're a developer or you work with managing developers. You want to understand the code tools like code commit, the CI/CD pipelines, also core services like S3, that's their storage layer. And then, yeah, you can never do without EC2, that's their VMs or what you might call servers. So depending on also what kind of, whether you are looking, whether your background is a developer or whether you are going into architecting, usually you might not be able to start off as an architect, a cloud architect, because the cloud architect usually comes at a higher role. So let's say in the beginning, you can do more of sysops. So sysops is trying to manage infrastructure and keep applications running. So with sysops, you basically just need to know one high-level language, maybe Python, Java, PHP. You don't even need to know it in depth. But then you need to understand the AWS services, which will help you manage services or even deploy solutions, automate solutions, do CI/CD pipelines, continuous delivery, and integration. So I think that is from a sysops perspective. You can manage applications for people. So you just need to have that baseline knowledge, get comfortable with the terminal as well, because you might be working in a Linux environment or even Windows, you still need a terminal. So it's a bit of that sysops knowledge. If you are also a developer, then you can understand how to develop with the AWS services. So you need to understand the SDKs, you need to understand the code tools. Obviously, you need to have Git knowledge, that is a given. You also need to look at some of the AWS services which cuts across development, okay? Then lastly, you can decide to later marry development and ops, and that becomes DevOps. And yeah, I think that is a good way to, or a certain pathway you can take to be able to land yourself some job. But please, let's have more detailed conversations on the Slack channel. We have a lot more time and we can get more deep with you. Yeah. So let's answer his second question. That will end the session for question answer. Yeah, Iman.
Okay. So on collection of certifications, first of all, I think for a job, the most important thing is your skills. So if there's proof that you've been working, you have the skills for machine learning engineer, I mean, most companies would hire you. The certificates will mostly get you an interview. Yes, because you have the certificates, but most importantly, your skills will be tested. So skills and certifications go hand in hand. For machine learning engineer, I believe machine learning engineer is a person who deploys machine learning solutions, among others, not a person who develops the algorithms and the likes. So in relation to that, minimally, I think you need the sysops, like you said, and then the machine learning certification. But then if you want to go extra, I mean, you need a machine learning security, because security is your responsibility as well. So you need to understand how to secure your machine learning endpoints, among others. And then DevOps, because at the end of the day, you want to use a continuous integration approach to deploying your workloads. It's easier, and then it fosters visibility. So our advice that yes, even though a specialist towards machine learning, use a DevOps approach. And the DevOps professional exam is a very good way to learn these things or validate your knowledge in those areas. So thanks very much, all of you, for your questions and your time.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Emma, for that question. Now, to wrap it up, so the AWS certifications, they have some overlap. There's a common ground. Like he said, there are the popular services which cuts across different certifications. Those kind of form the fundamentals. And I think that is good to know. So if you know those fundamentals, that is S3, the EC tools, if you're a developer or if you are managing developers, you need to know the code tools. Then it's a very good premise to take on the different paths, whether you might even go specialty into machine learning, or you are managing applications that are running, making sure they are up, or whether you are architecting new solutions. There's a lot of overlap. So, but what's important is to have those foundational, understand those key services. And one of the things we've had a lot of demand from people in the community to be able to take the developer certification. A lot of people have engaged that they will wish to take the developer certification, and Emma and myself has planned to be able to plan a study group to help guide and also work with those who wants to take the developer certification. So that is something we are going to plan to do. We can't give a date yet, but it will be very soon. We will bring out the details of how we are going to make it happen, and you can feel free. And then if you intend doing the developer certification, then yeah, you can feel free to join, and we should get a lot of insights and knowledge to what to look out for and how to better prepare. And we'll even go down and stitch a bit on some of the key places or key things to look at concerning the developer exam. So that is something we will do. Also, we would share the event after here. We will put it on our YouTube. We have other past events there. It's a fairly new YouTube page, more events and more how to. We also plan to do some how-to videos, very short how-to videos to teach people different sections of AWS. So it's a fairly new thing we are beginning to do, trying to create content even outside our events. So that's something we are going to add on as well. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of our presentation. We are grateful you all made time to be able to come to this meetup. And I also want to thank Emma very much for taking time to bless us and help us understand his journey. And also we can appreciate what goes into getting certified and the benefits thereof. Please feel free to continue to engage on the Slack group anytime. We're always ready to jump on. And yeah, let's keep building and stay safe. Thank you very much. We will call it a day and then we'll meet another time. Thank you all. Take care.